Hey everybody, welcome back. Mike here. Today's step-by-step how to draw tutorial is of Spider-Man. The image on the screen is the reference for the drawing we're going to be doing today. I'll try to make it as easy to follow as possible. Grab your paper, pencil, and eraser, and let's get into the drawing. I will put an image of Spider-Man in the upper corner of the video so you can see the reference while we're drawing. Okay, so start by drawing an oval in the center of the page. This Spider-Man is a view like he's climbing up a building, like you're standing on top of a building, you're looking down, and Spider-Man is actually crawling up the wall. So this is going to be a different kind of drawing than we've done before, where we did like the full body. You're going to see his head, his shoulders, his arms, and his legs, but you don't see the full body. So we're going to start with the head. Draw a loose, sketchy oval at the center of the page. And because it's a symmetrical face, let's draw a straight line to bisect it down the middle and one across the eye line left to right. At the beginning of the drawing here, we're going to keep all our lines loose and sketchy because we're just going to try to lay out the entire character on the page before we go ahead and start finalizing the lines. On the upper left hand side of the head, we're going to put a little oval, kind of like a Mickey Mouse here. This is going to be his shoulder. His arm's kind of going back and descending into the background. So we're going to identify the location of his right shoulder. And then we're going to take his chest from that shoulder down across the front of the body, down below the chin. So it's a light, loose, sketchy line. Curve it down from the shoulder down to the chin. Now we're going to draw his left shoulder. Now his left arm is in the foreground, so his hand's going to be much bigger. And we're just going to identify the major shapes of the arm. And you can continue the chest line down to that second shoulder. We're going to take a line off the left side of the chest. This is going to be his leg. So his leg is kind of bent up. Again, he's climbing up a wall and we're seeing it from the front. Now, because his arm is straight back, I'm going to do a series of circles to kind of identify the components of the arm. So you got his bicep and his forearm, and then it's going to go all the way down back towards the hand. And for the time being, I'm just going to indicate the hand with an oval before we start adding a lot of detail to it. I did curl his pinky finger back. Now let's start drawing his left hand. Again, the hand is way in the foreground. I'm going to just kind of start by indicating the location. You can see the wrist kind of goes up along the left side of the chin in the face, and his forearm curves up and over towards the left shoulder. I'm going to take a curved line and start creating the thumb off to the left of the wrist. I kind of look at the hand as a triangle because look at the shape of it, how his fingers are spread, and the wrist comes to the point where it connects to the forearm. This is a kind of a difficult hand to draw, so we're just going to keep it loose right now because we're going to just improve it and refine it as we go along. But if we can indicate where the fingers are, it'll be much easier to find later when we are cleaning the drawing up. Now each of the fingers is going to come off the top of that hand and in the front. So I'm going to indicate the circles where they would connect to the knuckles. And now I can start extending the fingers from the knuckle out towards the viewer. All of the fingers are pretty spread out. The most front-facing finger is the index finger, and it's kind of bent and pushing down against, again, the building if we're climbing up a wall. So that's just going to be a vertical line that curves up. And again, the fingers fan out, so they're just kind of layered behind each other. So this part of the hand is going to require a little bit of cleanup later, but again, we're just getting the basic shapes down right now. Now the pinky finger is almost completely hidden around the finger to the left of it. We're going to take the line from the wrist up and curve it around. Again, the forearm is out in front of you, so it's stretched out. And again, this foreshortened arm is a lot more difficult to draw than just drawing a straight arm out away from the body. So I'm trying to break it down with the major pieces here, starting with the location of the hand. Forearm curves up and over, and you can see down to where the elbow is. And I'm taking a line from the bottom of the palm off to the right that comes down to an elbow. And we're going to connect the elbow to the bicep and refine the shoulder a little bit. The shoulder needs to be a little bigger than I initially draw it. And then right beyond the shoulder is his shoulder blade, which is popping up between the head and the shoulder on the right hand side. So I'm going to go back to the right shoulder on the left side of the drawing. And as you can see, I'm starting to darken the lines as I'm getting more final about their location. Now, I always hated drawing Spider-Man's face straight on. I always like a 3/4 turn or a side view It's so hard to get it completely symmetrical, but using the guidelines, the vertical line that's down the middle and the eye line across from left to right, makes it a little easier. Because his right arm is up behind him, his chest on the right side is a little more exposed. And then his front left hand that's out in front covers up his left pectoral. Now I'm going back in to just refine the fingers a little bit. I'll tell you that this was a huge refinement on the hand. A lot of trial and error, a lot of erasing, and feel free to start cleaning up the guidelines and the sketchy lines as you start to finalize the shape of the character. Anything that doesn't look right, go ahead and erase it and draw it again until you get it exactly the way you want it. Now Spider-Man does not have a ton of detail in his face. He's just got basically 2 eyes plus the webbing. I'm going to identify the center between his eyes. Now his head is tilted a little bit forward, so you see more of the top of his head. So the eyes are going to be lower on his face. And his eyes are teardrop shaped, and they go up to the right and up to the left. So once I identify the center of the face, using that little circle in the middle, I'm going to draw the teardrop shape on both sides. Lots of different versions of Spider-Man have different size eyes. These are probably a medium size eye for a Spider-Man mask. And I'm drawing a couple of guidelines so I can make the eyes the same shape on both sides, the same size, the same shape. Again, this is why I don't love drawing a front view of Spider-Man's face, because it's so hard to get them to look exactly the same. So I drew a line at the bottom of the eye. Once I drew one eye, I drew a line at the bottom, a line at the top, so that I could meet them at the same shape, same size. Just another extra guideline to help it be as symmetrical as possible. So I got it to a point where I was able to erase all of the guidelines on the face, and I can start focusing on the detail. So this drawing took me about 40 minutes to do, start to finish. It's not the most complicated Spider-Man drawing because most of his body is missing, and there's a lot less to actually draw here. But some of the details in the hands and the body are a little more complicated, so they took a little bit of time to finish up. Feel free to pause the video at any time if you need to catch up with what I'm drawing. Again, you're seeing the highlights of a 40-minute drawing session, so follow along, pause the video when you need to, and then pick it up once you get your drawing completed to that level. You'll notice I turn the paper a lot. It's to get a little more pencil control when I'm drawing, so feel free to turn the paper as needed, what's most comfortable for you to draw. Once you have the outside shape of the eyes completed, you can start adding the inner lens. It's a similar teardrop shape, but pay attention to where it's thicker and thinner in relation to the outside perimeter of the eye. As you can see, I'm curving a line down. And again, look at the reference image and see how his eyes are formed. At the top, I'm kind of curving a line down inside of the perimeter of the eye, the black part of the eye frame on his face. It looks weird in black and white, but once you color that black perimeter in and the white lens, it looks really cool. Now I'm refining the outer shoulder and the left bicep. These pieces are going to overlap each other, and then his left shoulder blade just connects from his shoulder to his head and fades behind his head. Now let's go work on his right shoulder and start finalizing those lines. Finalize the lines and then erase the sketchy guidelines from when we just sketched out the shape of the character. So with the right arm, because it kind of goes behind him, it's hard to identify the various components. You've got the shoulder, which is prominent right off the side of the head, and then you've got the bicep, which you just see a little portion of. So you can see me curving a little line up around the shoulder because it's going to mimic the same shape, but you're not going to see the entire bicep. In addition to the lines of his body, you also have the lines of the suit where it changes from red to blue. So I indicate those lines. Those help later when I'm actually coloring it, but it is part of the detail of the suit, and you've got to kind of consider where those details fall. So right now what you see in the shoulder is the red part of the shoulder, his right shoulder, and then the blue part of his shoulder. And then the next segment of his arm is the bicep. So we're drawing that here. Bicep ends at the top with a elbow, and you can see the elbow piece right there. And then we've got his wrist tucked back. Again, this is a really foreshortened line for his arm. Now you got his forearm, and then that goes into the wrist. And keep in mind, the forearm does become narrower as you go towards the wrist. So I'm curving a line to the wrist. Again, this is why we lay out the entire character before we start adding all the detail in, so we can kind of see where things are going. And from the elbow, the little point of the elbow, we're going to curve a line up and down, again coming to a narrower wrist for the forearm. So from the wrist, we're going to take a curved line up. This is basically the left side of his palm that goes up towards his pinky finger. And from this angle, you're not going to see all of his fingers. They're going to be kind of disappearing and bending behind him, so you can't really see them. But you can see little extensions of his knuckles. So pay attention where those are. His thumb is even hidden because it's also bent up behind him. So you don't really see the thumb, but you see the little extension of his thumb coming off the bottom of his wrist there. And then the fingers are all bent and curled backwards. Always remember the fingers are in 3 segments. When you look at your hand, when you see your fingers, each segment of your finger from the tip to the middle part to the part that connects to the knuckle is 3 segments. So always consider that when you're drawing fingers. Now the thigh of his right leg is visible, so we're going to go ahead and start refining that. You don't even see his feet in this front view as he's crawling up the wall. Just pay attention to where the muscles are, where the bulges in the muscles are, how it comes off the side of his body, and where his knee is. So we're curving the knee up here. Now from the reference image, you do see a little bit of his right calf that sticks up past the knee, but you don't ever see his foot here. So here's the calf part I'm drawing right now, and it's just a little bit of a bump that sticks up past the knee, past the thigh. But the leg here is relatively easy to draw. I'll use my big eraser to kind of clean up any smudges that happen on the paper. Okay, so most of the left side of his body is completed. Got his head, his right shoulder, his arm, his hand, and then his right pectoral muscle, and then his right thigh and calf. So now we got to go ahead and finish up the left hand, which is again in the front. It's much larger because it's way up in front of him, in front of the camera. We're going back in here and finalizing the fingers. This was not easy to draw, I'm going to be totally honest. The fingers here coming right at the camera, being way up ahead of him. His thumb looks kind of funny. Even in the reference image, his thumb looks kind of funny. But you use the reference image as a guide and kind of see where his arms... Actually, you know what really helps is looking at the webbing on his costume, especially in his hand, because it really segments the fingers and creates a guide for you to see how to draw them. So kind of look at that. I always look at Spider-Man's hands when I'm trying to draw his hands. I always say hands are very difficult to draw. But if you look at the circles that go around each of the fingers, it really breaks the fingers up into little segments, and it makes it much easier to draw, or at least much easier to visualize what it should look like. Okay, so now his body is mostly complete. We're going to start adding any final details into the drawing. Mostly we just have to add the webbing to the red parts of the costume. So I'm going to go back to the eyes and start putting the webbing on the face. The little circle in the center between the eyes, and then the webbing kind of all goes down to the center of his face there, but kind of curves with the contour of the head. So pay attention to that. Follow along with the reference image and with what I'm drawing here, and you can get the webbing just right. Going back to his head, we're going to treat the all the lines that go to the center like spokes of a wheel, and we're going to connect them with these curved lines between them. Space them out farther the farther you go back from the center. Just make sure that when you do these curved lines that they connect together so they look consistent. Now you're going to only see a little part of the spider emblem on his chest. So I just drew the little head of the spider and a couple of the legs that would stick up in this view from his foreshortened chest. In fact, on the reference image, you barely even see the little spider logo. My technique for drawing the webbing is, because it's such a thin line, you just draw it very lightly and quick. You can do a really quick flip to get a curved line, and don't press as hard on the pencil. Just keep it very thin. It should be thinner than the rest of the lines on the page. As we're adding just the last bits of detail, we're almost done with the drawing here. Do any final cleanup, any extraneous lines, any smudges on the paper. It's So here's the final pencil drawing of Spider-Man. Let me know in the comment section how yours turned out. Remember, I do take requests, so if you have any characters you want to learn how to draw, go ahead and put that in the comment section, and I'll try to make a future video on it. Like the video, subscribe, comment below, and if you want to watch another how to draw video right now, go ahead and click this video right here.